everything changes in a matter of seconds in the National Football League. Honestly, you think about the grand scale of this game, but it's the invisible moments that truly dictate history. A single, hurried signature on a piece of paper, a slight, almost imperceptible shift in the medical report, or just a passing conversation in a quiet hallway from years ago. These are the microscopic forces that build dynasties, and they are the exact same forces that can completely tear them down. Welcome back to NFL Nexus. I'm your host, and today we are pulling all the way back on the curtain to reveal the dark and complex machinery of the Minnesota Vikings 2026 offseason. Because what we're looking at right now is an offseason defined by a ruthless, calculated hunt for power, heartbreaking medical realities, and a looming, brutal schedule that is going to test the absolute limits of this franchise's soul. Before we dive deep into the high-stakes reality of this billion-dollar organization, make sure you subscribe to the channel, like this explainer, and comment down below with your thoughts. And listen, if you truly want to support the deep-dive cinematic content we're building here at NFL Nexus, please support the channel by becoming a channel member today. We've a massive amount of ground to cover, and the stakes, well, they've literally never been higher. I want you to really, truly think about this question for a second. What actually happens when the smallest off-season detail alters the entire future of a billion-dollar franchise? From the outside looking in, we all know the NFL looks like a game won exclusively on Sundays, right? Giants in helmets and shoulder pads colliding on the grass. But from the inside, down in the windowless war rooms, the sterile medical tents, those late-night film sessions, it's a game of microscopic margins. It's a terrifying game of survival. In this explainer, we're going to examine three completely different yet intimately connected layers of the Minnesota Vikings right now. We're going to look at the men in the suits fighting for ultimate control. We're going to look at a young, absolute warrior whose entire life stream was shattered by a single, devastating medical exam. And finally, we're going to look ahead at the absolute gauntlet waiting for them when the leaves turn brown and the bitter winter sets in. The butterfly effect is very real in this league, and it is unfolding right now in real time in Minnesota.
Part 1. The Hunt for Power, Rebuilding the Front Office. Let's get right into it. Now, when a franchise looks for a new general manager, they aren't just hiring a guy to look at spreadsheets and make draft picks. No, they're looking for an architect. They're looking for a visionary who's going to completely dictate the culture, manage the salary cap, oversee the scouting department, build the analytical frameworks, and forge the very identity of the team for the next decade. Finding that perfect mind is a monumental, exhausting task. And the Vikings know, if they get this wrong, they'll be cast into the dark ages of the NFC North for years. So to find this architect, the Vikings cast a massive, unprecedented net. Just look at this initial list of 7 heavyweights. You've got Rob Brzezinski, the internal cap wizard who's currently holding down the fort as the interim GM. This is a man who knows all the deepest, darkest secrets of the Vikings ledger. Then you look outward, Terrence Gray, the assistant GM from the Buffalo Bills. He's coming from a front office that built a perennial cold weather powerhouse up in New York. You've got Chad Alexander from the Chargers, John McKay from the Los Angeles Rams, bringing that aggressive, all-in Hollywood mentality to the table, R.J. Gillen from the San Francisco 49ers, and let's be entirely honest here, any front office piece you can poach from the 49ers gold standard operation is worth their weight in absolute gold. Dave Ziegler fighting in the trenches with the Titans, and Nolan Tasney from the Seahawks. This is not just a casual search to check some boxes. This is a massive, exhaustive interrogation of the brightest minds in modern football. The Vikings are leaving absolutely no stone unturned, because the margin for error in today's NFL is absolute zero. But just when the league thought the board was totally set, Tuesday arrived, and the plot thickened in a major, highly dramatic way. The Vikings suddenly pivoted and added 3 new, incredibly intriguing names to their target list. First up, Reed Burkhardt. He's currently the Broncos' assistant GM, but his roots run incredibly deep in the frozen tundra. Burkhardt spent 13 long years with the Vikings organization. He is the right-hand man to George Paton, whom the Vikings would have absolutely loved to interview for the top job had he not just signed an extension out in Denver. Bringing Burkhardt back, that would be a homecoming, a return to familiar DNA. He implicitly understands the cold, the culture, and the immense, crushing weight of those Minnesota expectations. Second on this new list, you have Kyle Smith, currently the Dolphins' assistant GM, but his connection to Minnesota is fascinating. He was actually a wide receiver in the Vikings' 2006 training camp. Think about that. He knows exactly what it feels like to sweat, bleed, and fight on their actual practice fields. He transitioned from grinding on the grass to grinding in the film room, methodically climbing the ranks in Miami and Atlanta. He understands the actual physical toll of being a Viking. And then, there's the third name, Ray Agnew, the Lions' assistant GM. And this is where the story gets incredibly intense. Let's really zoom in on Ray Agnew here, because this brilliantly illustrates how a single historical detail can alter everything. Agnew has spent the last 5 years in Detroit.
He helped take the Lions from a perennial laughingstock to an absolute terror in the NFC North. He knows exactly how to build a bully. He knows how to construct a roster that fundamentally breaks the will of its opponents. But honestly, that isn't even the most crucial detail here. Look at the timeline. Back in 2020, Ray Agnew was in the building with the Los Angeles Rams. And do you know who else was in that exact same building, game planning, strategizing, and living through the exact same highs and lows? Current Vikings head coach Kevin O'Connell. They were in the trenches together. In the NFL, synergy between the head coach and the general manager is the holy grail. It's the absolute pinnacle of organizational success. If those two men are not locked in step, the entire franchise crumbles from the inside out. This specific shared history from 2020 could be the tiny spark that turns the tide of this entire massive search. It's a connection built on mutual respect and a shared, deep-rooted football philosophy, and it makes Ray Agnew an incredibly dangerous contender for the throne.
Part 2. A crucial medical setback. The Scooby Williams story. Now we must shift our focus completely. We're leaving the polished wood of the boardroom, the luxury suites, and the high-profile executive searches, and we're heading straight down to the brutal, unforgiving reality of the grass. Because while billionaires and executives are interviewing for ultimate power, young men who have sacrificed their entire bodies for this game are fighting just for a chance to stand on the sideline. The undrafted free agent market is where dreams are either miraculously born or quietly, painfully put to rest. Enter Jeremiah Williams, known to everyone since childhood as Scooby because of his love for the fruit snacks. But make absolutely no mistake here. There was nothing soft about the violent way this man played the game of football. Scooby Williams is a 6'2", 243-pound physical specimen, a linebacker who went to war in the SEC for Texas A&M, racking up 11.5 tackles for loss and pulling down 2 interceptions in just 18 games. When the draft ended and the undrafted frenzy began, Williams was the absolute crown jewel of the Vikings' 19-man UDFA class. I really want you to visualize this player. Imagine that sheer size, that raw power, and that violent downhill triggering ability injected straight into Brian Flores' insanely aggressive defensive scheme. It was a match made in football heaven. The Athletics' Dane Bruckler had him ranked as the number 26 linebacker in the entire draft, even noting that NFL scouts previously had early round grades on him. The potential was massive. The excitement inside the building was palpable. But as we all know, potential doesn't heal ligaments, and excitement doesn't pass medical evaluations. The NFL is a terrifying, unrelenting game of attrition. Let's slowly walk through the tragic timeline that derailed a promising career before it even took flight in Minnesota. It started in the offseason with meniscus surgery. A red flag, certainly, but players recover from that all the time. But then came the 2025 season. High ankle sprains to both ankles cost him 6 crucial, development-heavy games. His body was betraying him at the absolute worst possible time. The injuries lingered so severely that during the biggest job interview of his entire life, the pre-draft combine, he couldn't even perform the athletic testing. He just had to stand there and watch others take his spot. Still, the Vikings believed in the tape. They agreed to terms. But then came May 2026, the physical in Minnesota. The team doctors look at the imaging, they test the stability of the joints, and they slowly shake their heads. The physical has failed. The contract is pulled. The dream is put on an indefinite, heartbreaking hold.
And this brilliantly and brutally illustrates the immediate, ruthless fallout of the National Football League. The league simply does not pause to mourn your bad luck. It does not wait for your ankle to heal. It is a churning, unfeeling machine that must constantly be fed. The very moment Scooby Williams failed that physical, the front office was already on the phones. They pivoted instantly. Following the rookie minicamp, the Vikings signed former Pitt and South Carolina linebacker Bengali Kamara. One man's devastating heartbreak is quite literally another man's ultimate salvation. The transaction is incredibly cold. Within hours, a facilities manager walks up to a locker, unscrews the plastic nameplate that Jeremiah Williams had fought his entire life to earn, and slides in the name Bengali Kamara. The playbook is handed over. The train just keeps moving forward without skipping a single beat. It is calculated, it is harsh, and it is the exact unvarnished reality of how this league operates at the highest level. 1. Just 1. After his incredibly fast shuffle, after the failed physicals, the shattered dreams, and the rapid-fire signings, there is exactly one open spot left on the Minnesota Vikings 90-man roster. One single vacancy. Every single decision from this point onward is magnified 1,000 times over. Who gets that final golden ticket? Is it going to be a battered veteran who gets cut late in a sweltering training camp, or is it an unknown rookie who flashes incredible speed at a private, closed-door workout? The chessboard is almost entirely set now, and the margins for assembling a championship-caliber roster are razor-thin. Every move is heavily, heavily scrutinized, because every single roster spot is a weapon needed for the impending war.
Part 3, the primetime gauntlet, the 2026 schedule prediction. And why exactly is the roster construction so absolutely vital? Why are they agonizing over every single GM candidate and sweating every microscopic detail in a medical report? Because of what is waiting for them in the fall. Let's move to the ultimate battleground. You can have the very best front office on paper, and you can have a perfectly healthy roster in August, but absolutely none of it matters until you step under the lights and face the reality of the violent schedule the NFL has laid out for you. The NFC North is no longer just a division. It is an absolute bloodbath. Just look at the predicted divisional clashes that the Vikings have to survive. Week 1, right out of the gate, they are projected to travel to the frozen tundra to face the Green Bay Packers in the marquee 3:25 p.m. afternoon window. Hostile territory, maximum pressure from day 1. Week 6, the Detroit Lions come to town under the blinding lights of Sunday Night Football. Week 9, the Packers return for a rematch, again on Sunday Night Football. Do you know what playing back-to-back Sunday Night Football games against ferocious divisional rivals actually does to the human body? The late nights, the hyper-adrenalized matchups, the violent collisions, it creates a compounding exhaustion that can literally derail a season before December even begins. 4 of their first 5 NFC North matchups will be waged when the entire country is watching in standalone primetime or massive late afternoon windows. There is nowhere to hide. If the new GM's vision isn't working, millions of people will see it in high definition. And if you somehow survive that early onslaught, look at the closing stretch. Week 17 and 18, the Chicago Bears and a brutal road trip back to Detroit to close the season. The physical and mental toll of this division is immeasurable. But perhaps the most intense night of the entire 2026 campaign is predicted to fall on Week 12, Thanksgiving night, 7:15 p.m. The Buffalo Bills come to Minneapolis. Now, this is the first time the Vikings will be playing on Thanksgiving since that epic, totally unforgettable 31-24 victory over the New England Patriots back in 2022. I want you to really imagine the scene here. The turkey has been carved. The nation is settled into their living rooms with their families. The autumn air is freezing outside the stadium, and 2 heavyweights are going to clash on national television. This isn't just a football game. It is a profound statement to the entire league. Facing a powerhouse like the Bills on a short week, under the brightest holiday lights possible, is exactly the kind of moment that defines a franchise's character for years to come. Will the roster they meticulously built hold up to the immense pressure? Will the defensive schemes stop an elite quarterback on the national stage? This is exactly what all those intense front office maneuvers and heartbreaking medical checks are building toward. This is the crucible. So, we finally arrive at the ultimate question, the question that will completely define this entire era of Minnesota football. With a new architect taking absolute control in the front office, a roster molded by the cruel and unforgiving realities of NFL injuries, and a truly brutal primetime gauntlet waiting for them in the dark of winter, will the Vikings crumble or will they conquer in 2026? Every single detail matters. Every passing conversation in a hallway, every piece of medical tape, every single hour of sleep before a Sunday night game. The stage is set for an incredibly dramatic, high-stakes season. I want to thank you for joining me on this deep dive into the hidden machinery of the NFL. If you appreciate this level of cinematic, narrative detail, make sure you subscribe to NFL Nexus, like this explainer, and let me know in the comments. Who do you think should be the new GM, and how many games do you honestly think they'll survive in this absolute gauntlet? And remember, you can directly support these deep dives by becoming a channel member today. Until next time, keep your eyes on the microscopic details because that is where the game is truly won.